My nephew looked at my 7-year-old son and said, "Only grandma's real grandkids get to eat first." The whole table went silent. Then my mom laughed. I grabbed my kid's hand and walked out, and by midnight my dad was texting me about rent like I was some tenant. It started with shoes. My son wore his beat-up Lightning McQueen Crocs because they made him feel fast. My nephew stared at them like they were stolen property, then whispered, "Those look stupid." My kid's shoulders dropped while the adults suddenly found the ceiling fascinating. Food hit the table and my nephew went for the throat. "Only grandma's real grandkids eat first. Not my brother, not my dad." Nobody corrected him. My mom giggled like my kid was a punchline. My son stared at his plate and went quiet. Outside, my kid asked if he'd done something wrong. I told him no, and I meant it, but my stomach was on fire the whole drive home. A few hours later, my dad texted, "You can start paying rent now." I replied, "Cool, then you can start paying yours too." And the family group chat detonated. By morning, my brother called to demand an apology. I asked if he even heard what his son said. He sighed and hit me with, "Kids say dumb stuff. You're too sensitive." Then my dad sent a photo of my old room at their house, emptied out like I'd been evicted. Right after that, my mom posted my nephew in brand new Lightning McQueen Crocs. Grandma always delivers. I met my mom at her cafe because I needed her to say it out loud. She didn't ask about my son once. She only talked about Image and how I made a scene. When I asked why she laughed, she stared into her coffee and said, "He's not really." Then she added, "Blood matters." I stood up and she hissed, "Don't ruin the family." That night, my husband told me my mom had called him weeks earlier. She asked if he'd ever done a DNA test, like my son was a suspicious package. I confronted my brother and he barely blinked. He said a test would clear things up, like my kid was a stain. Then an unmarked envelope showed up in my mailbox. I held it in 2 hands, like it could burn me. First, the paper slid out and it felt way too official. Next, I saw my name printed in bold at the top. Then I saw my mom's name listed as mother. After that, my dad's name showed up with not the father. And finally, a third man's name I didn't recognize at all. I drove to my parents' house and held the page up in the doorway. My mom didn't deny it. She went pale and asked, "Who sent you that?" My dad glanced at the paper and turned away like I wasn't there. That night, an unknown number texted, "You deserve to know who he is," with an address. 15 minutes later, I was on the porch of my dad's old coworker. He opened the door and his eyes matched mine so perfectly I went cold. He admitted he was my biological father and my mom had made him stay quiet. He also said he helped pay the down payment on my parents' house, the one they always bragged we earned. So yeah, my childhood wasn't just built on a lie. It was financed by one. And because life loves kicking you when you're down, my husband's past cracked open too. I found a sealed CPS letter in his desk and a photo of a little girl who looked like my son's twin. He confessed he'd lost custody of his first child and told people she died because it sounded cleaner. The next day, he showed up at my parents' house screaming that they poisoned me, then drove off and vanished. He left a note on our table, "Don't call me." So I stopped being quiet. I dug out every letter my biological father had ever written to me, letters my mom had hidden for years. I photographed them and dumped them into the family group chat with zero explanation. At 4 a.m., my brother called me vindictive and said I destroyed their reputation. I told him it was already rotten. I just opened the fridge and hung up. My mom showed up the next morning looking wrecked, not polished. She finally admitted my brother was adopted and my dad couldn't have kids. So all that blood matters garbage was always selective. I told her I could maybe forgive secrets, but I wouldn't forgive her using my son as a shield for her guilt. She left without arguing, which was almost worse. A few days later, another envelope arrived, this time from my dad. He wrote he'd known the truth and he still chose to be my father. He apologized for every cold moment he dumped on me. The last line hit hardest, "Love your boy the way I wish I loved you, without fear." My son looked up at me in his red Crocs and said, "It's okay, Mom. We don't need them to be happy." So tell me, was I wrong for burning it all down? Or did they have it coming? Would you have gone nuclear or played nice? Drop your take in the comments.